High school leaders, this message is for you. On the threshold of a school year unlike any we've seen before, and not like any that we had wanted, you have a lot on your shoulders. I'm a literacy coach and a teacher. My peers and I, we have some concerns, but you do too. And right now, I want to encourage you. I see you. All those hours of Zoom meetings where you were trying to develop a plan B for your plan B, trying to figure out what it is you're going to say to your staff when you have to deliver news to them that you don't want to share. Parents and students asking you questions that you don't have answers to, and holding your breath while you wait for the governor, the school board, the city council to make decisions. You used to have a plan. You used to have it together. You had a system. And now it's almost like all that power has been taken from you. As an aspiring leader, I have spent my summer trying to figure out how to make this better. My qualitative research project is about this moment, now, with all of its stress and all of its drama, but I'm here to try and figure out some best ways that we can move forward. So here's what I've done. I've pored over literature related to crisis management in healthcare, business, politics, the military, universities, and schools. I've looked at trends related to all of those as it pertains to the stock market failure, other pandemics, and to church turmoil. I've tried to piece together what might be applicable for now, and I have also interviewed and observed school leaders within my community and developed a case study. My best assumption for this moment is adaptive leadership theory. Heifetz, Grashow, and Linsky, hereafter referred to as the authors, developed this theory, and leaders all over the world have adopted its principles. You've probably studied its principles, but are you applying them right now in this moment? Probably not. But who can blame you? Heifetz himself even said that in moments of crisis, it's not appropriate to apply all of these principles. But this is no longer a moment of crisis. There's no end in sight, and your students are about to return to school if they haven't already by the time you watch this. Here's how I'm going to help though. I'm going to lay out some of the best practices of adaptive leadership theory and the ones that are going to most specifically pertain to this time for school leaders in the pandemic. After all, the theory sets up that it's not just about merely surviving, but with adaptive leadership theory, you can thrive. This case study encourages leaders to adopt adaptive leadership principles during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond, and looking at what makes an adaptive leader. Now, I'm not suggesting that leaders should have made different decisions during this time. After all, adaptive leadership isn't just about doing your job really well. Here are some recommendations on how you can move forward applying adaptive leadership principles, and I'm not even going to be addressing all of them, but just the ones that most closely relate to this time of transitioning in our schools. I've laid them out into 4 themes. The first step towards adaptive leadership is for you to reflect on your own style and your purpose, why it is you're doing what you're doing. Don't move on to these other steps until you've taken a moment to honestly reflect on your organization's purpose and your purpose. Once you've figured out your purpose, it'll be invaluable for you to make sure you can clearly communicate why you're doing what you're doing. People are much more likely to be open to change and to listen to you if you clearly communicate your purpose and your vision. Another vital role that communication plays is in shared language. The authors say, when people begin to use the same words with the same meaning, they communicate more effectively, minimize misunderstandings, and gain the sense of being on the same page, even while grappling with significant differences. The authors recommend that you stay present and keep listening as an adaptive leader, And they also say that leaders who are listening from the heart and speaking from the heart will strengthen the ability to inspire others within the organization. As school leaders, if you model great communication with your teachers, then they'll be able to use that same communication with their students. Communication in itself is of limited value unless it leads to collaboration. The leaders in the study did a wonderful job when it came to distributing tasks. They can move forward with this strength and become more like adaptive leaders if instead of just distributing tasks, they work with their followers to become true collaborators, and those followers start initiating their own tasks. This is what the authors call independent judgment. Schools would do well to expand their circle of collaboration, not just to leaders and teachers, but to other community members and families. That way, multiple perspectives are being heard, and voices that aren't typically at the table now become part of the conversation. Leaders also should not shy away from dissenters, because although there might be conflict that comes up, understanding the other side will often help with adaptive change. If people feel cared for and wanted, that will lead to healthier teams. In collaborative relationships, people often feel trusted. And although trust is not a goal of adaptive leadership, having those healthy relationships often makes trust a byproduct of adaptive leadership. When the district values teamwork and those within the team feel safe to collaborate, that's what the authors are referring to as a holding environment. Think of it like parents holding their infant children. They're providing them with a safe and nurturing place to grow and mature. Unfortunately, often leaders, even those who are good at adaptive leadership, feel lonely in the endeavor because they're responsible for providing the holding environment for everyone else. They often feel so lonely because they're the ones who are doing the holding and not ever being held. The leaders of this study placed far too much of the burden of learning, doing, and creating on themselves. It's apparent that they were working way too hard for far too long. There is a temptation to continue to do all by yourself, but as an adaptive leader, it's important that you empower others on the team to work alongside of you and to lead with you. Careful reflection time is extremely important for adaptive leaders, even though you often may want to hurry through and rush a decision because you don't have a lot of time. But instead, adaptive leaders take time to ask questions, consult other leaders, engage the team in collaboration so that when you're ready to make the decision, you can clearly communicate it with your team. The authors refer to challenges as technical when they have simple or known solutions, but adaptive change comes from times of difficult decision making when solutions require a lot of creativity and even taking some risks. This method of leading technically would be fine if leaders were always faced with problems they knew the answers to, but that's not the case. And in fact, in order for the organizations to really grow and thrive, they need to be creative and experimenting with new, innovative ways of tackling problems. And not only that, they have to be willing to accept that the leader doesn't always have the right answers. An element of adaptive leadership that might cause some concern for leaders is in embracing conflict as a good thing. Conflict, when done well, can cause people to really grow and change. That's really going to happen when the leader has set up the environment that we referred to earlier as the holding environment, where people feel comfortable sharing their vulnerability. And that's really when the best decisions can be made and when the best growth can happen in the organization together. Adaptive leadership theory provides us with an opportunity to rise from the ashes of this pandemic. A time for us as schools to evolve and grow and learn and create better systems. During the Hurricane Katrina crisis, the president of Tulane University recognized the immense need to rely on others, leaders from other universities and those within his campus. He also recognized he couldn't do all the work alone. Another thing he saw was that when the students came back to campus, it was never going to be the way it used to be. If his school couldn't return to the way things used to be, it's foolish and unrealistic for us to think that the schools that our students left in mid-March are the same ones they're going to be walking into soon. However, we can use the principles of adaptive leadership theory to help us grow and change and evolve, and we might even flourish in ways that we never thought possible.